Hello.
Dying's easy, comedy's hard. That's very, very true, but what's even harder is scoring comedy. The interesting thing about making people laugh is that what they're watching is making them laugh, and what they may be hearing in the dialogue is making them laugh. The music shouldn't be telling them that this film is funny all the way through. Can you imagine? Funny music with a funny film. It's like having somebody sitting in the seat next to you going, "This is funny, isn't it? This is funny. Yeah, this is funny, isn't it? Yeah," which was going to kill it stone dead. So, how do you score comedy? Interesting one. In the historic kind of context, it's interesting that the beginnings of sound cinema, you do get kind of like vaudeville comedy music with comedy films, but they tend to be top and tail. You very seldom have music going all the way through. That's the case with early sound anyway. But even a great British comedy from the mid-30s like Oh, Mr. Porter has only got top and tail music and a little bit of music under the action sequences. It's not trying to tell you it's funny. And I think that's really important. So, what about funny music? Funny music, I think, is light, dancey. Certainly in the 30s and 40s, it kind of assumes a certain silliness as well. Maybe the kind of special effect, rasping trombones, all the stuff you'd expect from a kind of a silent period of almost Mickey Mousing action with music. Now that works a treat with great animations like Tom and Jerry or Mickey Mouse, where the music is funny because it is so totally locked to the picture. So that when Tom comes down a flight of stairs and hits a radiator and turns into an accordion, you actually do get the xylophone doing clang, the sound of an accordion playing as he opens up and closes up again. Now that is genuinely funny, but then that's all the music there is. And it's not just generically saying this is funny. It's scored to the absolute millisecond at a time, let's bear in mind, when they didn't have any ability to be able to sync music straight to film. So basically you have a great, great composer for Tom and Jerry. I'm going to have to look him up. So when you've got a great composer like Scott Bradley, who wrote the music for the Tom and Jerry films, there you have someone who can write a line of music over a period, I don't know, maybe a minute or a minute and a half, that fits absolutely exactly to the film, and then he builds in a hold. That's what's interesting about these very fast moving animations. If you listen to the music, because they're having to Mickey Mouse what's going on with the comedy, he actually has to every now and then stop, because the only way he's going to get this synced is then recording the orchestra to the screen and beating the time himself. Okay? He might have a click track possibly, but it's unlikely because the tempi are moving so fast. And probably the time signatures as well. So he may have 4 beats in a bar here, then 5 there, then 8, then 4, then 5. So it's like a piece of modernist concert music. It's a real tough call. And the musicians have got to play it absolutely so that it fits to the screen. So if you listen to a Tom and Jerry film, and let's say it's 10 minutes, within that 10 minutes you will hear 5 or 6 points at which the music goes to a single held note or to a held chord. That's his out for each take. And then you can hear how he picks up for the next bit. It means that he doesn't try and do the whole 10 minutes and then beat the whole lot to picture when he's recording it in order to make it fit, because that would just be a nightmare. But that is a different kind of thing to comedy music per se. I guess in the same way that horror movies use music to prepare us for horror. So we're already all set up by the sound of a horror film to expect horror. So a comedy film, a good comedy film, sets us up to expect comedy, but doesn't necessarily underscore that comedy. Now, it depends. In a case of one of the greatest and certainly most expensive comedy movies ever made, which is It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, you have music all the way through, which is kind of, isn't this funny? Isn't this funny? This is really funny. And I think it's a bit of a problem with the film, in that there's a sort of desperation to make an epic of laugh riot comedy. And the music, though, is rather nice, and it's in a sort of 3-time. It's like the whole film is waltzing, which is kind of sweet. Another interesting one in terms of over-the-top comedies that are only so good is Spielberg's 1941, where you have John Williams actually anchors the film. The film itself is all over the place. It is a scattershot. And some of it is just horrendous. I mean, I haven't watched it for a long time. I would guess some of it is borderline unwatchable. There may be people out there who still love it, I don't know. But the music score is terrific. And you can hear the music kind of going slightly off the scale in that it becomes marching band music, which gets more and more kind of raucous and wacky, as if the musicians are a little bit smashed while they're doing the recording. But in general, John Williams' job always is to anchor a film, and he does a better job of anchoring that movie than Spielberg does. When it comes to comedies that have a sense of their own confidence, you obviously have wonderful films like Danny Kaye movies in which the music is usually quite spare, and when it is there, it's usually in a sort of Tom and Jerry style, in that there's something very small, very kind of dink, a real hook, to then get you into the next sequence. And of course, with something, one of my favourite films of all time, which is The Court Jester, you actually have songs, and those songs provide the score. That's where the tunes are going to come from, is the songs that Danny Kaye is singing. When you come on through that time, we get into the 1960s and you start to have jazz and pop behind comedy, that kind of helps as well, because you've got a beat there, you've got a rhythm. But for my money, the greatest comedy music is the music that doesn't think it's a comedy. Now this is where it kind of gets weird but interesting. It also requires a film which is in and of itself a brilliant comedy, but maybe coming from left field. And for my money, the very greatest of the lot is Young Frankenstein. Now here we have John Morris, who's a really fine composer. He worked a lot with Mel Brooks. I think he'd done almost all of Mel Brooks' films, including real tough stuff like the first David Lynch, The Elephant Man. But with Young Frankenstein, he does something which I think was the last thing any of us expected, which is to outdo the original Universal horror movies in making us feel sorry for the monster. So you get the opening title sequence, ba-ba-bam, and you get dum-bum-bum, what you'd expect, Universal. And then the whole sort of wonderful pre-story, stuff that you do, black and white. It looks great. I remember seeing it in the cinema for the first time, knowing it was Mel Brooks, but even so, you get the title come up, and then you get this absolutely heartbreakingly beautiful violin theme. And it's so nice, and it works so well, and it's slightly klezmery as well, which you'd expect. Young Frankenstein's Jewish humour, so of course it's going to have a bit of that style behind it. It makes you care. And then he can do any number of knob gags and fart gags and stuff about, rolling the hay and what big knockers and all the rest of it, because we already care about the film. Now, I think this is the way to go with comedy films. Give us a reality from which you are then mining laughter. Don't tell us it's funny. And I love the fact that Mel Brooks then becomes totally self-referential, in that towards the end, when the monster has gone running off, they bring him back by playing him his own theme. But not only are they playing it, but Frankenstein, G. Wilder, is playing the violin himself up on the battlements in front of a kind of homemade speaker thing. And Marty Feldman plays a little horn break that comes just after the violin. It's beautiful, and it also accepts the fact that the horn moment, which is just literally a tiny little moment, is part of the thing. So short of having John Morris, short of having John Morris actually standing there conducting, you could not have made it more obvious. And of course, Mel Brooks loves all that sort of thing. High anxiety. The music builds and builds and builds, and Mel Brooks is standing there going, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then you look around and there's the orchestra going past in a bus. Cleveland Little's riding towards the camera looking fantastic in Blazing Saddles, and as he gets really close in, there is Count Basie and his orchestra sitting there in the middle of the desert playing the music. That kind of self-referential gag, wonderful when you can pull it off. And of course you need the money to do stuff like that. And it's happened again and again and again. It's almost become a cliche in and of itself now. But it works with Young Frankenstein because Young Frankenstein takes its mise en scène absolutely seriously. So nowadays we are a whole different audience. We're an audience that doesn't like being patronised, an audience that doesn't want to be talked down to, an audience that doesn't need to be told a comedy's funny because we've been told that's why we bought the ticket to go and see it. And the music being funny music with a film has got to have a jolly good reason for being there, because if it hasn't, the first thing it tells us is that the filmmakers don't believe the film's funny. I'm not going to give any particular references for that. You've probably got plenty of your own.